Van kindsbeen af, met raad en saam, met lyding en hoop, verdriet en saam staan jy sterk. Jy is altyd daar. Dit wat ons doen, ons liefdes, ons vreugdes, ons plekke, ons thuistes, tot daar waar ons reis, jy is daar. Afrikaans is ons wese. Dis die taal waarin ons groet, die taal is in ons bloed, is Afrikaans, vir ons mense. En ek stuur vir jou 'n sein, met 'n boodskap daarby, en waar jy is, sal jy dit kry, in Afrikaans vir ons mense. Al verander straatname, al word helde laat val, ons is steeds deur ons adem, ons kultuur, ons verhaal, dit sal altyd bestaan. Afrikaans is ons wese. Dis die taal waarin ons groet, die taal is in ons bloed, is Afrikaans, vir ons mense. En ek stuur vir jou 'n sein, met 'n boodskap daarby, en waar jy is, sal jy dit kry, in Afrikaans vir ons mense. Ons is daarmee gebore, die taal waarvoor ons staan, dit vloei deur ons are, ons kinders praat dit saam, dit sal altyd bestaan. Afrikaans is ons wese. Dis die taal waarin ons groet, die taal is in ons bloed, is Afrikaans, vir ons mense. En ek stuur vir jou 'n sein, met 'n boodskap daarby, en waar jy is. Dis die taal waarin ons groet, die taal is in ons bloed, is Afrikaans, vir ons mense. En ek stuur vir jou 'n sein, met 'n boodskap daarby, en waar jy is, sal jy dit kry, en Afrikaans vir ons mense. Afrikaans vir ons mense. Afrikaans vir my mense. Afrikaans vir ons mense.
Dumela Botswana, Sawubona South Africa. Hello folks in the UK and all around the world. If you're wondering about the hair, I figured what the heck, just let it be today. Let it be. Welcome in everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. A lot of folks in here, some very enthusiastic greetings. I hope that Giselle's song Für uns Mensa got you kind of excited and stoked and ready to go. Lots of news to talk about today, folks. And I see some comments coming in already, so let me address a few of those up front. Then I'll run through my list of things that I want to talk about for news today. And not all of it is the news that you're likely to see on the news or on television or in the print media, but things that matter. So I'm going to introduce some of those topics that we're going to discuss today. So let me just get into it here and say hello to folks in the chat. There's a number of folks. Listen, by the way, hey, for all of you tuning in, thank you so much. Got a pretty loyal following of folks who tune in for this Stray Voltage, and it's become a U.S. and South Africa-centric stream, but not entirely. We do talk about other things, and I'll do a little bit of that tonight. So thank you so much for tuning in wherever you're at from around the world. And let me just say good evening to folks in Africa and good afternoon here in the United States. And good tomorrow for those out in Oz and in New Zealand. So, and I'll also bring you up to date with some of my guests coming up. I've got some bookings for the weekend, and we'll talk about that shortly. So, HBM Air, how are you doing for Ambassador of SA? Well, not so good at the moment. Trump is a little distracted. Marius is here to support. Well, thank you so much. Wesley, good to see you again. Douglas Graham, hello. Kermit GTT, good to see you. Lucy Luca is here. Was on the Loving Life guy. Need to be absent for that. Okay, cool. Speaking of Loving Life, Scott Balson will be my guest tomorrow on Indaba Africa. Okay, just make sure you guys can hear me. I just make sure my mixer was showing sound there. Let's see. So he'll be on my channel tomorrow. I'll talk more about that. What? I don't know about the hunger strike. I missed that. Greg, Hoydag, Iron. Okay, Alma. Okay. Paulie, good to see you there. Yanni, hey, I fixed the spelling. We'll talk about that in a minute so people be clued into the secret chat between Yanni and I that's in the open. Flip du Plessis, thank you so much for that enthusiastic greeting. Sky Greg T was on the Conscious Caracal. Yeah, Ernst von Seil is a very talented young man, and his streams are quite good. His Perverted videos are very professional. I'm kind of envious of that, but I don't have AfriForum behind me. I assume he has AfriForum helping him out with that. Maybe I'm wrong, but he does a good job on those. Nigel suggests a Zoom session. Yeah, I have never done Zoom. In fact, today, Yanni Vandeveld and I were consulting online. He gave me a call, and we talked about some features of software and some different applications that work well. And so, Yanni, thank you so much for your assistance earlier. And I'm glad I was able to pay it back a little bit with some a small amount of advice to help you out with a few things. Yeah, Zoom, I don't have a paid account at the moment, and I will be having Major General Johan Josta, who will be my guest on the 4th of July. That will be a Zoom session. You're limited how much time you can use. So I will do a Zoom session at some point. I've had a call-in session before, and in fact, we could probably do that. I was thinking about doing a call-in session on Saturday, but maybe even tonight. We'll see how it goes. And for those of you who were tuned in yesterday and we got cut off by the red ants, my profuse apologies for that. I did come back on with another stream just to explain to folks what happened. It was the internet. It just went out here for some reason. It happens sometimes. I feel like I'm back in somewhere in Africa with my internet unreliable and occasionally the power going out. But something most Americans aren't accustomed to. But we lost the signal, and I came up. I thought I'd do a 10-minute video to explain to people. And next thing you know, we're going for an hour here. We had about a dozen folks tuned in, and they were asking interesting questions. And somehow we got on the topic of briefings and presentations and speeches I've given. And so I just tried out as a demo what it'd be like to use some of my PowerPoint slides and give a presentation. So we played around with that a little bit yesterday for those who want to check that out. Let's see. Douglas asked how the Hemsbach's doing. Of course, he spells it like some English guy. It's just like there's my Hemsbach, Wilbur. Yes. Now, I had to pull the Hemsbach out in case anyone's curious because Ronaldo hosts kindly, generously, when I first called him in a couple months ago, said, hey, because people were like, get the Colonel on again, get the Colonel on again. And he said, you know what? I will commit right here now that I'll have Colonel Wyatt on my channel once a month, and we'll do it on the Sunday service. We'll come up with a name for the show. I was very kind of Ronaldo. We'd only known each other a short time at that point, and I was very generous to make that offer. We've done 2 of these programs. One was on a Sunday, another was not on a Sunday because we had to keep rescheduling because the internet was out and stuff like that. But yeah, that was very kind of him. So I was supposed to come on this week, even though I appeared on Scott Balson's Loving Life last Sunday. I was still supposed to be on Ronaldo's channel this Sunday. But apparently he got somebody I've never heard. Do you guys know this person? John Steenhuisen? Apparently some political figure in South Africa. I've never heard of him before. So I got bumped for that guy. So I'm feeling like chopped liver. So I had to get Wilbur out, to console me here because I was kind of frustrated. But on the upside, ladies and gentlemen, you asked for it, you got it. Just like Toyota, you asked for it, you got it. People have been asking me, not so much the last week or so. I think some of them gave up. But I've been asked for weeks to bring Big Daddy Liberty on this channel. Sunday on this channel, 11 Eastern, 5 p.m. in South Africa and Botswana, 4 p.m. in Namibia, Ghana. No, not Ghana. Namibia, Nigeria, and London. Big Daddy Liberty, right here on this channel. You got it, folks. Oh, there, Yanni's putting up the link to that. I know a lot of people are big fans of Big Daddy Liberty. He'll be on my channel. We'll be discussing politics and events in South Africa. And also, hopefully, we'll learn a little bit about his background if he's willing to share that. So you asked for it, you got it. Big Daddy Liberty right here on Chris Wyatt Africa, the Indaba Africa program this Sunday. Anyway, so there you go. Let's see what else we got here in the chat. If I don't want to miss everything, because Yanni's doing a great job putting those feeds in there. Bosch Zebra's here. Hendo's here. Good to see you. Sean Rourke. Hi, Sean. Douglas Graham. Hank. Good to see Hank. Tion VJ. Good to see you again. Nigel. I already addressed that. There's Aina. Hey, Aina. Good to see you. Yanni put the Mr. Punisher's here. Carol Karl Rux, good evening. Karl Rux, that I'm guessing is my friend there, Odin Moja. I think that's who that is. Anyway, welcome. Good to see you there. And Grant, good to see you all here. All right, folks, let's get started with some of the things that we'll be going over today. I'll talk about these events today. I'll put some up on the screen as I discuss them. But I will once again, as promised, be reading from Dinesh D'Souza's newest book, The United States of Socialism, this autographed copy that I have right here, my personal copy. And I have picked out a section in the first chapter that is very apropos for South Africa, specifically the tyranny of the majority, a subject, a term you've heard me say many times if you watch this channel, the tyranny of the majority. We have a political system in this country that is set up to ensure that we do not have the tyranny of the majority, or for that matter, the tyranny of the minority. No system is perfect, but he addresses why that matters, and it is directly applicable to South Africa. So I'll be reading from that in a little bit, not just this moment, but soon. Dinesh D'Souza. Also, this fellow, Julius Malema, is apparently implicated in a Pretoria High Court ruling that set aside the city of Tshwana's fuel tender, which apparently gave illicit money, according to the court, to Julius Malema and his Secretary General of the Economic Freedom Fighters. We'll talk a little bit about that. BET, Black Entertainment Television's founder, Robert Johnson, one of the most successful Black Americans and multi-billionaire who's been very successful throughout his career, is now mocking the Black Lives Movement, not them so much as the insurrectionists and those tearing down monuments. And Robert Johnson is hot full of this nonsense. And that's interesting development to see finally somebody in the industry or corporate America step up and say enough of the nonsense while all the others are bending over and bootlicking sycophantically to this insurrectionist nonsense. Malawi's opposition party or coalition has claimed victory with 75% of the votes having been counted as of a couple hours ago. They had a 55% share of the vote for their candidate Lazarus Chakwera. And the sitting president, Peter Mutharika, with just 40%, with just 1 out of 4 votes left to count in the country. So at this stage, they've declared victory, although the Malawian government has warned that folks should not declare victory yet. But a 15-point deficit is almost impossible to overcome with so few votes left. So it looks like the opposition coalition has managed to pull off the victory and unseat Peter Mutharika, the man with a long pedigree, a successful pedigree, but not exactly a fan of democracy. In the case involving massive corruption and a purported attempt to conduct a coup in Botswana and embezzling of money, the AfriForum has sent their advocate, and I'll get his name wrong because it's Afrikaans, but Gerrie Nel, to represent the government of Botswana in this multi-billion-dollar case. Air Namibia staff are back at work after another COVID-19 hysterical reaction in which someone who purportedly tested positive appeared in one of their offices, and so they just sent everybody home rather than isolate, quarantine, and contact trace. But I must say that Namibia has done a pretty good job of dealing with COVID-19, this situation notwithstanding. I wouldn't blame this on the government of Namibia, but rather on its state-owned enterprise, Air Namibia. And in Zimbabwe, lots of news. The crocodile, Emmerson Mnangagwa, is now threatening economic saboteurs. Apparently, the reason Zimbabwe's economy is in the crapper in the midst of COVID-19 has nothing to do with the macroeconomic policies of the failed, repressive, totalitarian ZANU-PF party that rules Zimbabwe with an iron fist since 1980. No, nothing to do with them. It's economic saboteurs, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it here first. Well, not first, because Emerson clued us in. The crocodile has told us that there are economic saboteurs in Zimbabwe. And that's the reason for the failure. Well, that's good to know. I'm glad that the crocodile has shared that with us. Also, the government of Zimbabwe banned the use of combis, which is not an unreasonable measure, although it's a difficult situation. How do people get from place to place? Combis in South Africa, Botswana, Namibia, Swaziland, Lesotho, and Zimbabwe are critically important for transport. Anybody who's ever been to the government building in Pietermaritzburg and looked to the side of it and saw the hundreds of combis lined up as people filed into them all day long would know exactly what we're talking about. You South Africans know exactly what I'm talking about. But Zimbabwe banned the use of combis, ostensibly to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Not an unreasonable measure. But commerce always finds a way, ladies and gentlemen. Always finds a way. Whether it's a free market system or a totalitarian state, it doesn't matter. Commerce, like water, always finds a path. And so combi drivers in Zimbabwe have turned their combis into mini tuck shops. That's right, mobile tuck shops. Very clever, very clever. Smart. Now we'll see how long before the government of Zimbabwe cracks down on that, claiming they're not licensed or illegal or something like that. And then finally in Zimbabwe, the government has increased petrol prices by 147%. Diesel prices by 152%, according to reports coming out of Zimbabwe just in the last 3 hours. This is absolutely insane. The price of petroleum on the world market has not increased at that rate. Here we're in America where the price is allowed to float and the market dictates the price in large measure, not entirely, because we have massive taxes, not compared to Europeans, but we have high taxes on our fuel as a percentage of the cost of fuel. Here, where the free market dictates, the price of petrol is only increased by about 8-12% in most places as transportation requirements gin up. So why is the price in Zimbabwe climbing by 147% or 152% for diesel? Well, that's because the government artificially keeps the price low and or artificially inflates it to its benefit. And who suffers? 14 million Zimbabweans, ladies and gentlemen. That's who suffers. Well, not 14 million. Probably about 200,000 of them don't suffer because they're cadres of ZANU-PF. All right, so guests that are coming on the program tomorrow, Friday, the 26th of June, 2020. My guest at 8 p.m. South Africa time, 7 p.m. in Windhoek, London, and Abuja. And at 2 p.m. here in the East Coast of the United States, Scott Balson from Loving Life will be my guest. This is Paying It Back. I was his guest last week, and so he's coming on Sunday. It was Sunday, so he's coming on my program tomorrow. On Saturday, ladies and gentlemen, special treat on my regular Saturday live stream in which I interview someone. I will be interviewing a small business owner. I don't want to say small businessman or small businesswoman because that sounds like the person's diminutive. But I will be interviewing an owner of a small business in South Africa, in Gauteng, and that would be one Reese van der Walt. That's correct. Reese van der Walt will be on my program. She's a salon owner, and she'll be talking about the reopening of small business in South Africa as the lockdown restrictions have been eased a bit. And she works in an industry that is especially hard hit by this nonsense, specifically hair salons, nail salons, places where barbers, where people are very in close contact, you simply cannot avoid it. So Reese van der Walt and her lovely pink hair will be my guest on Saturday, 11 Eastern Standard Time in the U.S., 5 p.m. in South Africa. Tune in for that, ladies and gentlemen. It should be very interesting. She's got a great personality, and she has some interesting war stories about clients and running a hair salon. So that should be interesting. And it's not just about a hair salon, ladies and gentlemen. It's about small business in the midst of the lockdown. The impact of it, what happened during lockdown. Did they lose clients? What happened to their business? Did they survive? Are their clients okay? Are they able to continue? What measures to operate the business? What steps they have to take? And you may think you know the answers to those questions, but I guarantee you there are things that you'll learn from Reese on Saturday that you just don't know. Yeah, Riani says go and set reminders. Please do that. Set a reminder. Find the stream on the channel, open a different tab up, and tune in Saturday. Now, I'm already scheduled right after that. I will be on Germ Warfare at noon or 6 p.m. So this will definitely be a stream that we don't run on for an hour and a half or 2 hours or something like that. Reese will already have been working that day, so we're going to not drag her on, but we'll end that stream after an hour. Oh my God. Are you guys still there? Did I lose anybody? I have to look and see if my stream is still going. Okay. I have to see if my stream is still going, ladies and gentlemen, because I just had a power surge. Sorry. Yes, I don't know if my stream is still going. I got chat going, but I have to look and make sure that you're still getting a video feed. So let me see if you guys are still getting that. It's taking a while. It looks like you are. Okay. Yeah, so my apologies for that, folks, if there's a little hiccup there, but we just had a power surge. There's a lightning strike, and there was a in the power just like that. So we'll see what happens there. Video's good. Thank you, Tian. That's good. But you might be 30 seconds behind. No, you're not 30 seconds behind. Okay, yeah, I can see it on my stream. Sorry about that, folks. I thought I lost you all, and the red ants were coming back. That would have really been annoying. Okay, so Reese will be the guest, and then right after that, I go on Germ Warfare. For those of you who follow Jeremy Nell, the award-winning political cartoonist, the satirist from South Africa, I will be his guest on Germ Warfare, my first time on his program. Germ called out of the blue on one of my Straight Voltage streams last week, and so he's been on my program informally, but we'll get him on here as a guest sometime soon. So tomorrow, Scott Balson, Loving Life. Saturday, Reese van der Walt, right here on this channel, Chris Wyatt Africa. And then after that, I go in Germ Warfare. And on Sunday, as I've already mentioned, Big Daddy Liberty will be my guest here on Chris Wyatt Africa. That'll be a special feature on Sunday. Next week on the 4th of July, Major General Johan Jooste will be my guest, the former two-star general from the South African Defense Force and South African National Defense Force, as well as the South African National Park Service, private sector, and many other affectations that he's been involved in. He'll be an interesting guest. We're talking primarily about wildlife and conservation and things, but we will mention other things. Yes, Tercia, I do have surge protectors, but it's not a battery backup on this particular computer. The battery backup is set up with my DVR and TV setup, so I probably need to buy a new battery backup. Anyway, so let me get back to some of the chat I've missed here. Cool beans. I'm way behind. Okay, there's Yanni's putting up all those links. Garrett says, back knack tonight. Shirley won't make all tonight's. Would you consider doing a show on U.S. elections? Yeah, I will, Gareth. In fact, one of the reasons, and let me put this over here, ladies and gentlemen. So I've mentioned this yesterday on the program. Let me just find out where it's at really quickly here. I've got it on another screen. There it is. Okay, so there's a new site, and I'm going to turn my video off so you guys can see this, okay? So that's not right. That's not what I want to do. That's what I want to do. And, okay, well, the storm is really getting bad out there. So this is a new media site that's focused on making movies and televisions and potentially creative content from content providers like myself. It's called Creado. And that is Nick Searcy. If you don't know him, he was one of the lead actors on the program Justified that starred Timothy Oliphant about a Secret Service agent in Eastern Kentucky. Anyway, Nick Searcy did this video on this. I'll play it a little bit later, but they are going to be doing some content. So that's a site that's going to be run by conservatives, and they're not going to censor speech. I will be doing some things on the election for U.S. I have been a little circumspect about some of the videos I would really like to do on this channel. I don't want to start a community, get folks really interested in the community, and then get shadow banned, because it is happening, ladies and gentlemen. It is absolutely happening to people, especially if you're conservative. You can be Kathy Griffin and hold up a beheaded model of Donald Trump bleeding and not be censored by Twitter or Instagram. Yet Donald Trump can say that he's going to enforce federal laws and he gets censored by Twitter. So yeah, it is happening. So I will be talking about stuff, but about the election, absolutely. I can talk more about that here. If you've got questions here, feel free to ask them. Oh, look at that. Handy Dutchman gave me a donation towards an uninterrupted power supply. I don't think he meant the United Parcel Service. Yeah, UPS. Well, thank you so much for that, Handy Dutchman. It's very kind of you. I actually do need to get another one. I have some, but they're quite old. And if you had ups before, you know that the batteries, they just go after a period of time, and then the device is pretty much useless. All it is a surge protector, because the minute the power goes out, within seconds, the battery dies. So you have to replace those batteries too frequently. Yeah, I used to be a shareholder in American Power Conversion, APC, many, many years ago, and actually made some money off that stock. So look at that. Handy Dutchman, 50 Rand Super Chat. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that Super Chat, Handy Dutchman. Way to get it started there. Appreciate it. Not even e-begging. That's pretty cool. Wesley says 3,999. Is it that close? I was at 90 when I checked last time. Are we that close to 4,000? That would be so cool if we could go over 4,000 subscribers on this stream. That would be really cool. Now, we're 9 subscribers away. If there's 9 people here who are not subscribers, how about you just push that subscription button right down there? It doesn't cost anything. It doesn't cost you time or money. You could just push that subscription button and become a subscriber to Chris Wyatt Africa and see if we can get over 4,000 in this stream. That would be super cool. And to the 66 of you who are here, thank you so much for tuning in. This is a real pleasure to have you guys with me. For those who've been very observant or been paying attention to the stream, look behind me and you will see. They were named yesterday Zuma and Cyril. Those are my trolls. I didn't name them. The audience named them, but that's from yesterday. Yeah, there you go. So let's see. Back to the chat here. Yeah, well, there it is. In fact, Hendo asks, is Zuma Zuma and Cyril are still in the background? Huawei network infrastructure issues. No, we don't have Huawei here. Hank is happy to see Big Daddy Liberty coming on the channel. The interim leader of DAs, John Cena. Yeah, Sky Greg. I know who he is. I was being facetious. And what's that? Is somebody subscribe? Mr. Africa, thank you so much for subscribing. That's very kind of you. Look at that. Look at that zombie running up to Mahalicesburg. And he's gone. Thank you so much for subscribing to the channel. Really appreciate that. So that's a little bit closer. I think that leaves us 8 short of 4,000. Let's see if we can get there. Yanni says, oh, that was the reminders earlier. Well done, Big Daddy Liberty and Colonel. Thank you, Aina. Well, we'll see how it goes. Should be an interesting conversation with Big Daddy Liberty. Magic. Need to pump out the marketing for that stream. Yeah, I will. Put it out. Dreon upgraded membership to Master and Command. Whoa. Well, thank you, Dreon Funsile. That is very generous of you, and it hasn't come up on the screen. I'm sorry. It's in the chat. Saw it already, so I got a little excited about that. Thank you so much for that. Excellent. I have to check members. We were at 45. Dreon was already a member, so that won't make more members, but thank you so much for upgrading to that level. Cool beans. Anna Marie Jenkins, she's excited too. Nigel, excitement going on in our couple. Seems there's intruders in one of the units. Oh, my goodness. Christian says, don't worry, Chris. I have a bone to pick with both of you. Okay, Christian, you got a bone to pick no matter what, man. So just start digging at that scab, okay? Terrence Lowry says, he hopes I'm well. I am well, except for this pending storm out here. That came out of nowhere. I've been spending part of the day watering my lawn, and now there was no need for it. Okay, we're not going to talk about abuse of the Hemsbach. Not going to do that, Douglas. Officer Tatum on YouTube. Yeah, Tertia, you sent me a link on that. I know Officer Tatum. He's an amazing guy. He was also... Now, that didn't show up on the screen, did it? I guess, anyway. But he's an awesome guy, and he quit being a police officer. I haven't seen the video for why he quit, but I suspect it's because he was asked to speak all the time, and he was more important as a public speaker than as a law enforcement officer, and probably wasn't able to do his job effectively. So, yeah, but he's brilliant. I've actually sent him an email, ladies and gentlemen, to Officer Brandon Tatum, asking if he would appear on my program. Did that yesterday or last night or this morning when I sent a message to him, and he probably gets tons of emails, so I asked him if he wanted to come on. And I said, I'd like to have you on because the parallels between what is happening in the U.S. and what is happening in South Africa are unquestionable. And I think that his discussion about the U.S. and me mentioning how that relates to South Africa would be of great value to Tatum and to maybe some of his followers that might come here and watch it, and all of you. So I think that'd be great. Mr. BT is a very clued up guy. Yeah, Kermit, he's a smart guy. He's done really well. Lucy says, my goodness, that's some serious rain. Making me feel like I'm back in West Africa. Have you watched Katie Hopkins? I can't remember the group she works with. Working South. Yeah, Katie Hopkins has been doing some things trying to find countries where South Africans can relocate to. One of them in a cold part of Eastern Europe. Good luck on that one. And the other in the Philippines. But yeah. Ina says, ANC, EFFDA, AFRIFORM, ESCOM, SAA, Botswana, enough to give anyone nightmares. Police help South Africa is in deep cock. I'm trying, Douglas. I'm trying. Didn't corporations make huge profits this year? What corporations, Christian? This year, 2020, Amazon, Google, yeah. There are companies that are making a lot of money. People that make hand sanitizer are making a lot of money. Yep. But just because a few companies make a ton of money doesn't mean things are well for the rest of the world. Carol Rooks says, Botswana. There you go. Cool. Tertia Julius is a sly little skull. He seems to be throwing his breath. Yeah, those who watched the video earlier, the press conference with Juju, it was quite entertaining to say the least. Yeah, can't even point out the irony of what's going on. Hi, Chris. Haha, Zim. Yeah, exactly. Christian says 120,000 deaths. I don't know where you're talking about. If you're talking about the U.S., your count is behind. There's actually more than 120,000 deaths have been attributed, many falsely, to COVID-19, if that's what you're talking about, Christian. Combies. Yeah, Combies are great if you don't have to ride them. Yeah, Dubai has such cheap fuel because there's no tax on it, Lucy. The true price of petroleum is far lower than most people around the world pay for it. You're paying taxes to the state. States love fuel because they make money. And the lower the price goes, it doesn't matter. The tax stays fixed. That's right. Here we have a fixed tax at the federal and state level. How much for a gallon of gas? Well, that depends where you're at in the country, Sky Great Tea. But around here, last time I checked, it was about $1.99, $2.09 for a gallon of unleaded gasoline at the low end, the lower octane. And our domestic lady, housekeepers from Zimbabwe, she said the loaf of bread is $60 a moment. Yeah. No, I'm familiar with the term. Yeah, I remember I lived down there, Yanni. In fact, it's ironic because if you look at Botswana in 1966, many Botswana were domestic workers in Zimbabwe, and of course South Africa as well, but I'm comparing to Zimbabwe. So in 1966, a lot of Botswana had to go to Bulawayo or to Masvingo or to Harare to get work and would send money back to their family and only see their family periodically. Fast forward to 2002, and most of the domestic workers in Botswana are Zimbabweans. And the standard of living in Botswana is light years ahead of most of Zimbabwe. And everything about Zimbabwe has regressed since about 1990. And everything about Botswana has continued on an arc of improvement for most of the population over that time frame. And that shows you the difference between legitimate governance and totalitarian fascist states. There you go. And I think we can describe which one's which without any help. Yep, Yanni's putting up that link for the reopening small businesses with Reese Fundeveld. Now, interest of full disclosure, I think they're related. I think Yanni's trying to promote you. Anyway, so that's coming up. Let's see. Please pass around a glass for all the tears of the right because AOC won her district. Christian, you completely missed this. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is one of 435 members of the House of Representatives. She's got a mouth the size of the Suez Canal. She's got an intellectual capacity the size of this earbud. There you go. I'm happy for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Of course she won her primary. Nobody ran against her. How many people voted for her in a district that size? Virtually nobody. Yeah. So she's welcome to return to the House of Representatives. And the right doesn't care. Because every time she opens her mouth, more people wake up and vote reasonably. So yeah, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who cares? It's Nancy Pelosi and her fake eyebrows painted down to below her temple. She looked like she had sideburns coming from her eyebrows yesterday. Oh my gosh. If you're going to shave those things off like Julius Malema apparently does, then you need to, that might be racist. Then you need to draw them on a little bit better than that. You know, down the here, come on. She looked like a ghoul. Anyway, Nancy Pelosi is the one to worry about, not Ocasio-Cortez. Trust me. That threshold is capped at about 15% of the losers, the jealous, the envious, and those who just want handouts, and the Marxists. 15%. Just like the EFF. All right. Stream is good. Cool. Okay. That was from earlier. I'm way behind again. Keep losing you. Okay. Nicholas Brada says, "What's your take on the standoff between China and India? China has been flexing their muscle." No, you say of late, but it's not of late, Nicholas. It's been going on for 15, almost 20 years. They've had this plan with the 9-dash line to steal the South China Sea and claim it for China, hundreds and hundreds of miles, thousands of kilometers away from mainland China, and directly adjacent to the Philippines and Vietnam in particular. They just attacked the Vietnamese boat and went after its captain. They have been pulling all kinds of nonsense in the South China Seas for many years. They also, now this nonsense between China and India, but it's been going on forever. It's just that the world hasn't been paying attention. Tian was impressed with the journalist giving Julius crap. Yeah, some of the questions, but he didn't come out of it hurting at all. Yep. Warren says that's why Emirates can offer cheap air seats. Well, that's part of the reason why. They can also offer cheap seats because Emirates is not a secret slush fund for a political party and a place to park your incompetent, overweight, lazy cadre who have no talent and often are illiterate to destroy a company by being a board member and or being a useless executive collecting a salary for doing nothing. That would be SAA. Not to mention the idiots running it actually signing contracts with BEE certified companies to purchase goods and services at an astronomical price, thereby burdening the airline with unprofitability. Many reasons why South African Airlines is in the crapper and why Emirates can offer cheaper seats. Yep. Molly behind a tree. All right. Now I know why my flights... Whoa. Now I know why where'd that go? My flights odds are so cheap on China Southern. I was traveling through there. They told me the world... What's this? They told the world they want some Rona free with your... Botswana Rise. There you go. Hey, by the way, did anyone ever listen to the Bophuthatswana national anthem? Wasn't it a beautiful song? I'm not saying Bophuthatswana and Lucas Mangope was beautiful. What I'm saying is that their national anthem was beautiful. And if you understand Tswana or Setswana, you'd really appreciate it. But it was a really nice song. Pretty cool. Doc Breaker says AOC has teeth like the Ten Commandments, all broken. Ooh, that's a good one. Cortez, liberal idiot. Okay, no disagreement here. Hi, Chris. Could you help Sandef with some training advice, improve? Well, actually, we have, Terrence, over the years. The U.S. military has provided a lot of advice and assistance, but we're not alone. There are over 70 diplomatic missions in Pretoria, and most of those countries have offered assistance to the Sandef at one time or another. Their biggest problem is they have limited capacity to actually use the assistance that people offer. That's a real challenge for Sandef. They're not very deep with talent, in part because of their affirmative action policies, and also in part because they're still burdened by a legacy of incorporating people from different forces like MK, the Pan-African Congress's armed wing, the Bantustan's forces like the Ciskei Defense Force, the Transkei Defense Force, Bophuthatswana, and the SADF. And they were burdened with a bunch of people who came in at the same age cohort, and you wind up having 40 and 50-year-old privates, people that should have been advanced or booted out of the service long ago. And so that caused them all kinds of problems. But yeah, we have helped the Sandef. Also, not widely known, in the build-up to the 2010 FIFA World Cup, the corrupt one that Danny Jordan was responsible for, the bribes. That's right, with Sepp Blatter and that corrupt organization, that racketeering company known as FIFA. Yeah, that World Cup, in the build-up to that, the United States offered police, SWAT, and military assistance and training for counterterrorism for almost the entire time from the moment that it was awarded to South Africa. But it was only accepted late in the game. And very late in the game, the U.S. provided some assistance to the SAPs and to response forces and the SANDF, but only late in the game to help them just in case something happened. Did you hear about Helen Zilla's controversial tweets about apartheid? I heard someone mention it yesterday, Lucy, but I have not seen them. Someone sent me something. Christ 1, Christian 0. Okay. What's that? Millions of dollars wasted in trying to beat OC. Who's millions of dollars? The guy that ran against the Democrat? Okay. Christian. The millions of dollars wasted. You don't even know our political system. It's a primary. All of her opponents were Democrats from her party who wanted that seat. She doesn't run against a Republican until November. That's when the general election is. So there's no money wasted trying to beat her. No one ran against her except Democrats. If the Democrats want to piss their money down a hole, go ahead. Go ahead. Leza, good evening. Nant Mensa, good to see you there. Fonz. Ryan, when do you think, if at all, the U.S. and China will go to war? No, we won't go to war. There's simply too much to lose. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. Christian says, sorry, beat. Okay. I guess that was in response to the 1-0. Any person without eyebrows looks super surprised. Just like Juju. Yeah, he did look surprised. Oh, I don't know what you're saying. Even when you're not surprised. Yeah, discipline is definitely needed in your army there, Terrence. It's a big problem with that. Oh, Tim Pool. Yeah. Okay. AOC re-election, they went straight to the results online. What a disappointment. Yeah. Anyway. But, okay, she's not been reelected, ladies and gentlemen. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has not been reelected to Congress. She doesn't even compete for that seat until November. The first week of November, the first Tuesday of November is when she competes in 2020. And she'll compete against whoever the Republicans put up against her. Then the argument Christian wants to make about wasting money can be made. But if someone wants to run against her and they live in that district, more power to them. There's a congressman here in my district. I'm not going to run against him. He's a Republican. He's a Tea Party supporter. And he has the same conservative values that I have. And he's been outspoken in Congress. That's Scott Perry. So I'm not going to run against him as a Republican. That's just stupid. Wasting my time and money. Those Democrats wasted their money. So you were right, Christian. Wasted money. But who cares? They're leftist. Tim Clark does a good job. Government is just as act as a tourist attraction. Hey, Carl Rautenbach. Good to see you there. Yep, Street. Defender says, INC only running against Democrats makes more sense. Yes, because it's a primary. What happens is we have two rounds of elections. We have a primary in which those states differ and they have different rules. But most states, you must be a registered member of a political party in order to vote for candidates so that you're determining who your party's candidate will be in the general election. The same thing that this dog and pony show that Sleepy Joe Biden was doing. He was light years behind everybody until South Carolina. And then suddenly he's the front runner. That's a primary process. So he's not the Democratic candidate until he receives enough delegates. That's a little bit different. in a congressional district, you run in a primary. Sometimes, a lot of times, candidates run unopposed, particularly if that office is held by that particular party. Like Nancy Pelosi won't have a Democrat run against her in her district. It'd be suicide. They destroy that candidate because she's beloved. She of the super long eyebrows that come down to her temples. She's beloved by her party, and so any Democrat that has the temerity to actually run against her in a primary would be slaughtered and consigned to the dustbin of history, just like John Conyers. Anyone that would run against him would be put aside, foot second. That's the primary. The primaries typically happen in the springtime in the U.S., several months before the election. And then in the general election, the parties, candidates, or any independents that are running who've gotten on the ballot, and there's ballot requirements for getting on the ballot, that's who runs for office. So AOC has not won anything except her primary, but she was going to win that anyway. No way she wasn't going to win it. AOC won the primary with 27,000 votes out of 700,000 voters. No voter turnout. There you go, Fonz. And that's the reason that this twit became a member of Congress in the first place. No voter turnout. When you have 10%, that's not even 10%. 27,000 votes, 700,000 people in the district. So that's at least 400,000 registered voters or eligible voters, probably 300,000 registered voters. So less than 10% of registered voters, just, rough math off the top of my head, who bothered to show up for the primary. And that's not unusual, ladies and gentlemen. That's why you get such polarizing morons, half-wits, and idiots like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who couldn't find her way out of a bar. Well, I guess she did eventually. She got to Congress. All right. Gareth makes a point. He says, Christian is the reason you need to show in U.S. elections. Yeah, well, I think part of it, too, is because people just don't understand our system, and that's fine. Americans don't understand it. Not because it's complicated, but because Americans are stupid. Not 330 million Americans, but those who've been denied the experience of learning American politics and government in high school, civics in junior high school, by corrupt, leftist-controlled public school boards and education boards around this country. They just don't know. Too hard to crack a book open. Couldn't possibly learn from that. People in the stream really don't understand American political system. Yeah, and Americans don't. What a weird time in the world. Yeah, the Democrats 30 years are not the same people today. Absolutely, Carl. They're not even remotely like it. And this is why I was unregistered in a political party for 30 years, but there's no way I could possibly be a Democrat. And so I registered as Republican, even though I have grave reservations about the Republican Party. And like for now, where are the leaders in the Republican Party while people lead an insurrection, an organized, calculated, and intentional effort to destroy governance in our cities, almost all in cities led by Democrats, in states with governors who are Democrats, almost without fail. Not entirely, but almost without fail. Where is the leadership? Where are the Republicans in Congress, other than Tim Scott? And Tim Scott's focused on police reform. Okay, fine, bless him. But that's not where we need help. We need a leader to stand up. We need someone to grab that standard and march out there in front and have the political courage, the moral courage, someone besides Donald Trump. Nothing wrong with Trump doing it, but we need more leaders at the state and local level. Actually, I've received several messages from people asking me to step up. So I don't know if they're pulling my chain or they're just trying to have a go at me. Don't become a politician unless you absolutely have to. Yeah, that's a good advice, Christian, but somebody's got to do it. Lucy's pink elephants. Sean Rourke says, did you see Tule Monticella's Facebook page on how the Boers stood up after the war and moved forward and blacks kept using our party excuse? No, I didn't see that. If you could send me that as an email link, that'd be great. Obama Biden's days are numbered. Oh, speaking of which, ladies and gentlemen, I didn't bring that as a news item today. Barack Obama, according to the notes from Peter Strzok, he of the famous love affair with his married girlfriend. I think she was married. Anyway, Lisa Page. Peter Strzok took notes at the White House meeting, which Joe Biden has publicly claimed that he knew nothing about. Oh, I know about the meeting, but I didn't know that they were investigating and caught. Liar, liar, pants on fire, hair Pinocchio. Yes, Joe Biden has been caught lying on MSNBC, on CNN. The tape is there. The evidence is prima facie. We have it. He denies it. Now, we also have the prima facie evidence, which has been released as a consequence of the court cases going on tied to Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. In the handwritten notes from that meeting, just before Obama left office, Vice President noted, Barack Obama noted as president. That's right. And a whole bunch of other people like Susan Rice, all guilty, complicit in the fraudulent abuse of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act and the misuse of the Federal Bureau of Investigation to investigate Lieutenant General Michael Flynn over a fraudulent fictitious charge, which we still see the leftists in the media lying about yesterday, running stories in sites like Slate, claiming that General Flynn lied and deceived and all this other stuff. What did the president know, and when did he know it? Ladies and gentlemen, Richard Nixon resigned over a fumbled, stupid break-in of the Democratic National Committee's headquarters at the Watergate Hotel, and ultimately the tapes that he was stupid enough to keep in the White House. He resigned over that. That was amateur hour. This is the single greatest threat to this republic until this insurrection that's taking place now. But it's not really that great a threat to the republic if patriots step up. But yeah, so Barack Obama, he knew. What did he know, and when did he know it? That's the question I always ask of Richard Nixon. Yes, Barack Hussein Obama. What did you know, and when did you know it? We shall see. Christian says corporate Democrats waste money. Okay, Christian, I'll agree with you there because AOC was the choice. I would be surprised if corporate Democrats gave money to any other candidate, but I mean, as long as they didn't violate election law, that's their prerogative. But yeah, wasted money. We waste a lot of money on elections. I get crap in the mail every day telling me that Trump doesn't listen to scientists. And they show me a picture of people I've never even heard of. What kind of scientists are these? Okay. I'd like the Democrats' answers to 13th, 14th. Yeah, I'd like their answers too, but they'll just lie and obfuscate, just like they do with the use of the military. You can't use the military. It's forbidden to use the military. Posse comitatus. You can't use the U.S. military for domestic purposes. Ladies and gentlemen, I took an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. An insurrection is a domestic enemy. Those who commit espionage are domestic enemies. In the 18th century, the one and only time that the president, in his role as commander-in-chief, George Washington, rode on his horse from D.C. to Carlisle, Pennsylvania, and he organized the U.S. Federal Army and local militia to march against the Whiskey Rebellion, an insurrectionist in western Pennsylvania, the Scotch-Irish who were refusing to pay taxes on whiskey. And they put down the insurrection. In post-Civil War southern states that had been in an insurrection against the Union and in favor of retaining slavery, the Union Army was kept stationed in the southern states to enforce the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment to ensure that Black Americans had the right to vote, males, not females, had the right to vote, and that they were recognized as citizens and they were able to live their life. And while the Union Army was in the South, these rights were protected by and large, and there was a flowering of black political activity. Many members of the House of Representatives, many members of the Senate, many members of the state legislatures were African Americans, particularly in states like South Carolina and Mississippi, in which blacks made up either a majority or near parity as a population percentage at that time. The Union Army was later withdrawn, and Jim Crow laws came into place. In the 1930s, the Federal Army was called out on the wall, Washington, D.C., that slice of land that runs between the Lincoln Memorial and the Congress, to put down protesters known as the Bonus Army. These were World War I veterans who had not received the payments they were promised for their service, and it was, of course, in the middle of the Depression. So the Army, including people like Eisenhower and Patton, were sent out to knock heads and beat soldiers. And they did. They beat fellow veterans. Misuse of the military, but illegal use of the military. Illegal, not illegal. 1955, Brown versus the Board of Education is a Supreme Court decision, 1954, striking down the Plessy versus Ferguson decision of 1896, in which separate but equal was allowed, similar to the apartheid system. But separate but equal never was really the true situation. It was simply separate. So the Plessy versus Ferguson decision of 1896 was struck down with the Brown versus the Board of Education decision of 1954. In 1955, because Arkansas would not integrate its schools and allow black children to go to schools, the United States Army was sent to Little Rock, and we ensured that black children went to school. In 1992, in the wake of the Rodney King riots, a certain chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, one Colin Powell, the man who now has the audacity to go on Jake Tapper and say, Donald Trump is violating the Constitution, when Donald Trump has taken no action with the military whatsoever. He simply threatened to use the military in a lawful capacity to protect federal property. That's it. Colin Powell has the audacity to go on Jake Tapper and say that Donald Trump is unconstitutional because you can't use the U.S. military to put down riots. That's strange. In 1992, as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, he signed orders directing the United States Army to support the LA County Sheriff and the Los Angeles Police Department. And in addition, he federalized, with the order from the president, the California National Guard. So it is very funny to listen to Democrats who don't know their fourth point of contact from a hole in the ground try to lecture those who are actually literate in civics and politics and understand our system of governance and try to tell us that it's illegitimate to use the military. No, it's not. It may be imprudent, it may be unwise, but it is not illegitimate and it is not illegal. And you can take that to the bank, you leftist. Am I triggered? Nigel says, what we see in the U.S. streets is the same modus operandi as 1917 Bolshevik Revolution. And the same sort of thing that you would like, that Julius Malema would like to see in the streets of Alexandria and of Sandton. Watched The Daily Show over the last decade and more before Trump looked like a joke. Took Trevor Noah and Trump to change my mind. I'm so easily programmed. Yeah, well, Trevor Noah is a joke. He's a sad, poor excuse for someone who actually was briefly funny in South Africa. He's just a hack now. Like the Democrats' answer. Yeah, okay. Is Eureka here? I didn't see Eureka here. Eureka Osthuizen spent 2 years National Service. Okay. Whoops, got ahead of me there. Isn't the reason Trump not doing anything is because he can't? All the crazy. Okay, Charles Rousseau. Yes and no. There are things the president can do, but we'd have to invoke the insurrection action. That's what the left wants. They want him to overreact, to use the government forces to put down protesters. Yeah, the people burning buildings and occupying and declaring autonomous zones, which is an act of defiance, an insurrection against the government. And they should be captured, tried, and imprisoned as traitors to the United States of America for their actions. They think it's a little game. You declare an autonomous zone, you're declaring independence. End of the story. Trump does have certain restrictions. You can't simply march into Seattle and take over because you don't have jurisdiction there. It's not on federal land, and it's not a federal crime. Well, the insurrection is a federal crime, so he can do that. But he would have to invoke the Insurrection Act in order to do it, and the left wants that. The better answer in places like Seattle is you turn the water off, you turn electricity off, you turn off all public utilities, and you turn off, most importantly, the cell phone towers. And then these whiny little sad sacks who are destroying people's lives and destroying property and acting like fools will learn a very hard lesson. That's what you do. Yeah, Trevor Noah goes to Hollywood and becomes a political expert. But yeah, beyond that, there are limits on what Trump has under the federal system. But he does have the right to defend this country from domestic enemies. Hey, Trevor Noah is your gift to the U.S. Yeah, well, thank you so much for Trevor Noah. No, thank you. I tried to give him back, but nobody would take him. Will Trump be the last Dem till the Dems become, Christian Perdego says the second in charge is science denier. I think you're talking about Mike Pence. No, Mike Pence is a man of deep faith. And for that, he's been lied about and all sorts of fantasies have been told about Mike Pence. The man is a very honorable, a very polite, a very friendly, and a very generous man. And a brilliant vice president, without a doubt. Without a doubt. As a Proud Botswana military guy, I would like to salute the 54th Massachusetts, as would I. The 54th was amazing. Sadly, the monument, the private monument erected in Boston in their honor, was vandalized by so-called Black Lives Matter activists. They deny it, but it really doesn't matter. Their insurrection is what led to it. So they are responsible for the proximate cause, whether they did or not. Okay. All right, good night, Grant. Good to see you go. Should America break up? Of course not. That's just silly. Punisher's got to go too, okay? Take care. Burning the flag is your first attempt, right? I don't know who he's talking to. And apparently I'm the hack. Well, thank you, Christian. I've been very tolerant with your insults. If you want to have a conversation, you're welcome to have it. I have not attacked you personally, yet here you are doing it again. We'll see how long this goes on. If you want to be disrespectful, go do it on some channel where leftists are at, because that's their MO. That's their modus operandi. They insult, they belittle. I haven't insulted you. I haven't belittled you. If you can't handle facts, that's not my fault. I was not responsible for your acculturation. Your poor education is not my fault. If you'd like to learn, that's what the channel's for. You're welcome to stay. Okay. Yeah, Fawn says behave like grow up. I agree. No return policy. Okay, what else? Okay, so let's get back to some of the things we want to chat about here, folks. Okay, so let me bring some of those things up over here on the other channel, and I'll talk about them very quickly. So, okay, yeah. Garrett says, why are leftists so deeply into self-flagellation? Are you trying to suffer watching you don't like out of white guilt or because your role in man-made climate change? Yeah. Yeah, Linda's correct. Christian does it everywhere. He's just looking for attention, I guess. Snowflakes. Yeah, you are a snowflake, Christian. That's right. Leftists are snowflakes. That's good. Thank you for letting everybody know that. All right, so let me bring this up on this other one here. I'll keep talking, folks, while I talk about these things, and I'll read some of these things to you just very quickly here. All right, so there we go. So this is the case I was talking to you about, AfroForum. This is Advocate Harry Nell, who will be representing Botswana in the money laundering case. Not against Botswana, but against the president's, his sister-in-law, Cyril Ramaphosa. That's Bridget Motsepe Radebe, who is, of course, married to Jeff Radebe. So that's taking place. Beyond that, here you go. Here are the lovely fellows. Update on the High Court, which sets aside a dodgy Shwana fuel tender, fingers the company that paid Malema kickbacks. This is from today by Mike Reddy and on the Daily Maverick. The Pretoria High Court on Wednesday set aside a controversial City of Tswana fuel tender that was awarded to three companies, including one that funneled millions into the accounts linked to economic freedom fighter Julius Malema and Secretary General Marshall Dlamini. The payments appear to have been kickbacks in connection with a $500 million rand tender, which the city awarded in January 2019 to supply with fuel for a period of 3 years. Well, imagine that. Corruption on the part of Julius Malema. Shocker, shocker, shocker. In the slam dunk ruling, Judge Leonie Windle cited the irrational way in which the tender was evaluated as detailed in our expose. That's the Daily Mavericks expose. QTIC did not present evidence on the EFF payments, and these were not placed in contention before the court. As I mentioned, Robert Johnson mocks crowds who are pulling down statues, calls them borderline anarchists. They're not borderline. They're out-and-out anarchists and insurrectionists. He says that he has issues with this interview on Wednesday, blasted those who are toppling Confederate and other statues across the nation as borderline anarchists while challenging the notion that black Americans support this. Basically saying that most black Americans don't, and I would have to agree with him. These are fringe. In fact, if you look at the idiots doing it, the majority of them are white, not black. So there's something else in play here, folks. It's not George Floyd. It's not Black Lives Matter. Maybe the movement, but not the topic. It is about something entirely different. People tearing down statues, he says, have the mistaken assumption that black people are sitting around cheering for them, saying, oh my God, look at these white people. They're doing something so important to us. They're taking down the statue of a Civil War general who fought for the South, Johnson said. You know, black people, in my opinion, black people laugh at white people who do this in the same way we laugh at white people who say we got to take off the TV shows. I agree. He's right. And in Malawi, as I mentioned, the opposition has claimed victory in this redo of the May 2019 elections in Malawi. And there is the opposition coalition leader, that's Lazarus Chakwera, who has declared victory. They've won 55% of the vote versus 40% for Peter Mutharika. So there you go. By the way, for folks who are curious, I am on Parler now. I had had an account since it first started about 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago. But my account, the app was very dodgy, and so I quit using it, even though I had an account. But apparently they fixed a lot of the trouble, and so I have now gone on to Parler. If you're on Parler, you can find me at WMWChris, WMWCHRIS on Parler, and you can follow me on Parler if you like. If you are centrist or conservative, I recommend that you go to a platform like this that doesn't discriminate against freedom of speech. And so there you go. You see that picture? There's my profile, and that is the O2 over here, and that's the Thames River in London. There you go. So if you're interested, you can find me on Parler, and I've already mentioned Creado and Nick Searcy. And then someone asked me about getting Don Clark on the program. Is this who you were talking about, the musician from South Africa? If you're still here, whoever asked me about that the other day. I mentioned Air Namibia staff are returning to work after a overreaction, in my view, to the COVID-19. And then I mentioned Zimbabwe. Here you go. Emerson Mnangagwa warns critics sabotaging Zimbabwe's economic recovery. Because, of course, ZANU-PF couldn't be held responsible for this, even though they've been in power since 1980. Zimbabwean President Emerson Mnangagwa sent out a stern warning that his administration will deal with what he termed as malpractices eroding its attempts to address Zimbabwe's economic crisis. Mnangagwa, who addressed the nation in a televised speech in the capital, Harare, said the end is coming for those bent on pulling Zimbabwe's economy down. We shall not allow a situation where our people live in chronic insecurity, lack, and deprivation. It has become apparent that in our midst there are wolves in sheep's clothing. Are you freaking serious? Okay, I got to take that off and put my face on the screen here. Are you serious? Emmerson Mnangagwa. Listen, buddy, you were describing ZANU-PF. You were describing over 30 years of malfeasant governance and totalitarian dictates from a party drunk on power, and all they care about is feeding the cadres, not about Zimbabweans. There's a reason 4 million Zimbabweans do not live in Zimbabwe, and it's not because they prefer Sheffield or they prefer Wales. No, it's because of your government, which you've been a part of since 1980. Multiple ministries you're in charge of. And when you ran away like a little schoolboy because you claimed someone poisoned your ice cream at a fair and hid out in South Africa, abrogating your role as vice president, no longer legally the vice president of Zimbabwe, only to have Constantine Chiwenga bring you back in after a coup and reinstall you illegally as the president of Zimbabwe, and then hold an election in which it's clear there were irregularities, and it's likely that you actually lost that election, despite massive ballot stuffing in the boxes by ZANU-PF. And you have the audacity to tell us that we shall not allow a situation where our people live in chronic insecurity, lack, and deprivation. Did you miss the 5th Brigade that you sent into Matabeleland with Robert Gabriel Mugabe from 1983 to 1987? And the 20 to 50,000 people who died, many with bullets in the back of their head at a ditch, like the Nazis did? Deprivation, insecurity? That is ZANU-PF, Emmerson Mnangagwa. What are you talking about? Give me a break. All right, I'm losing people now. Getting triggered here. All right. All right, Zimbabwe, as I mentioned, has banned the use of combis to transport people, so they're turning them into little mobile shops. Now, several combi crews converted commuter omnibuses into mobile shops that has become the way to go as they battle for survival during the lockdown to combat coronavirus in Zimbabwe. Even for other Harare residents, like 37-year-old Mary Masindo, combis with their new roles have made it easier for many like her, to easily access groceries that have been hard to find at the start of the lockdown. It hasn't been easy for me to leave home owing to the nationwide lockdown, but I have nothing to worry about now because commuter omnibuses, combis, which now function as mobile shops, are delivering groceries at my door. Now that's kind of cool. That's kind of cool. All right, and then finally here, Zimbabwe increases the petrol prices. That's what happens when the state controls the petrol price, like it does in Botswana, in Zimbabwe, in South Africa. Zimbabwe on Wednesday announced a 150% increase in the price of fuel following the launch of a Forex auction system, which eroded the value of the local currency. Price of a liter of diesel jumped 152% to $62.77 Zimbabwean, which is $1.12 US, from $24.93. Wow. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. That is what's going on in Zimbabwe. So, yay, Zimbabwe. Not really. Terrible, terrible events going on there. Okay, let me catch back up in the chat since we went through the news. Yes, ZANU-PF, sack of cock. Sack of cock. That is correct. All right. Linda Smith says, this is a Christian. Oh, Christian. Okay, got it. Okay. National Guard activators rioting reunites cross U.S. Democratic politician attacked by far left. Yeah. A gay leftist Democrat progressive member of the Wisconsin Senate was assaulted by 3 obese, vile white women because he was taking video of their not so peaceful protest. They beat him. A member of the Senate, beaten by these thugs. Did I mention they were white? I did. That's correct. Anyway. Corvette 68 says, "Oh, I've seen the high volume of rain and shine." No, I hadn't caught that. Thank you for pointing that out. Julius has prepped himself for court. Yeah. Douglas Graham says, "I'm 47 years old. What's the future for Afrikaans people in South Africa?" Well, I think the future for Afrikaans people in South Africa is bright. But I think the future for all South Africans is bright. But it won't be bright while the ANC is in governance. So people must vote against the ANC. More so against the ANC than for somebody. I think it's a bright future for South Africans. Carl says, don't be silly, Zimbabwe. You're right. We declare a new era of opulence. It reminds me of the Doctor Who, A Key to Time series in which Doctor Who and Romana Ravatnalana, they land on this planet and they're trying to find one of the segments of the Key to Time. And people look up in the sky and a new age of prosperity has been declared by the government. And so they look on the ground, there's gemstones laying everywhere simply because the government declared it. Of course, what they're doing is they're sucking all the minerals out of the planet and killing the planet and then giving the little baubles to the public so that they think that they're happy while they take most of it for the elites. Key to Time. Boy, Doctor Who. From 1978, I think that was A Key to Time. Anyway, Zimbabwe is thriving. Simply declaring an era of prosperity. All right. The kind of guy who goes into hiding because his wife was bribed into poisoning. You talking about Emerson Mnangagwa. Nigel's here. Okay, how's the Kariba Dam wall doing? I don't know. That's a good question, Tian. I haven't heard anything about the Kariba Dam in a long time. So I've been watching the race war in France, Chechens versus Algeria. No, boy, these guys are all kinds of news here. The left is eating itself. It is, but hopefully enough people realize that, especially in South Africa. Let me see. I've spoken with so many people who vote ANC, trying to explain to them that they shouldn't support them anymore. They just can't get themselves not to when it comes to the ballot box. Yeah, it's identity politics, and it's not simply race, ladies and gentlemen. People think it's simply race. It's not. A lot of white people vote for the ANC. That's right. A lot of white people vote for the ANC. So, a lot of colors vote for them. In the Northern Cape, the ANC does quite well. In Northwest, the Cape they do quite well, which is surprising, but it's true. Lone Wolf has a $20 billion note from Zimbabwe. So if prosperity kicks in, I'll go cash. Good luck with that. Yeah. All right. So I did promise, ladies and gentlemen, it looks like a few people have left, but we still got quite a good audience here. I did promise to read from Dinesh D'Souza's book. So let me get to that so that we're not just killing airtime here. This is from Dinesh D'Souza's new book, United States of Socialism. And this section, I promise you, if you're patient, will talk directly to the U.S. and South Africa, and you will see the parallels here in this. All right, so let me get to this very quickly. For Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln, this was morally unacceptable. First, the majority cannot choose to enslave others because this is a choice exercised in order to deny choice to someone else. No majority, Lincoln insisted, has the right to steal the bread that is made by the sweat of other men. Yes, I would agree with that. In Lincoln's words, popular sovereignty amounted to saying that if one man chooses to enslave another, no third man is allowed to object. Thus, majority rule in this context amounted to a legitimation of tyranny of the majority, as I've said. Lincoln understood the socialist impulse and rejected it. Responding to both slavery apologists and socialists who condemned what they called capitalist wage slavery, Lincoln said, "The man who labored for another last year, this year labors for himself, and next year he will hire others to labor for him." Let me read that to you again. That is a very brilliant sentence. Lincoln said, "The man who labored for another last year labors this year for himself, and next year he will hire others to labor for him." In other words, no one is kept into poverty. They're forced into it. You can lift yourself up and advance under capitalism. Cautioning against socialist wealth confiscation schemes like EWC, Lincoln told a delegation of working men during the Civil War, "Let not him who is houseless pull down the house of another, but let him labor diligently and build one of his own." Well, there's a concept. But apparently people tearing down statues in America or, fees must fall, roads must fall, don't really care. Jefferson and Madison would have agreed. Even Democratic majorities have no business seizing property or earnings of citizens. An elective despotism, Jefferson wrote in Notes on the State of Virginia, was not the government we fought for. An elective despotism was not the government we fought for. Ladies and gentlemen, these 63% of white South Africans who voted in a referendum in 1992 to end the morally repugnant system of apartheid didn't end the system of apartheid for an elective despotism, which is what many people would claim the ANC is involved in now. If not before COVID-19, certainly since the advent of COVID-19, the National Coronavirus Command Council, an unaccountable, unelected, undemocratic, capricious, and totalitarian body that acts as if it has legislative control over South Africa. In his famous discussion of faction, Madison identified two types, minority factions and majority factions. How do they arise? The most common and durable source of factions, he writes, has been the various and unequal distribution of property. Minority and majority factions, says Madison, pose a danger to the public welfare because they both enviously eye the belongings of others. Yet of the two types of factions, Madison considers majority factions to be more dangerous. Why? Because minority factions can be curbed by the power of the majority. But how, Madison asked, can majority factions be curtailed? Nowhere does Madison assume that majorities have an unlimited right to do their will. On the contrary, he seeks mechanisms to regulate and control the will of the majority. And that, ladies and gentlemen, I'll get back to this in a moment, is why you need checks and balances so that people don't suffer the tyranny of the majority. Leftists love democracies. They love the concept of democracy. They can hoodwink people into buying into their utopian dreams and their nonsense after portraying everyone as a victim of one person or another. Today it's racism, tomorrow it's religion, the next day it's genderism. Then it's this ethnic group, Czech against Slovak. Then it's Zulu against Xhosa, Venda against Basutu. Leftists love that. They take power through the vulnerability of democracy. And then once they take power, they rule by tyranny. They rule as if they have the right with 50.1% to dictate to others. Our system here in the United States has many checks and balances, which are in jeopardy. The Republic has challenges today, but we have these checks and balances. Let me catch up on the chat here very quickly. Defender says ANC has 2/3 majority. We fail the IQ test every 5 years. Yeah, I agree. Can't listen to SAFM anymore. Echo chamber for lefties. Yeah, well, I agree. The Three Gorges Dam is very kinked. Ooh, okay. Christian says 3 miles of new wall not paid for by Mexico. Actually, what time frame are you talking about, Christian? The last 2 days, the last week? There was a press conference today in which 200 miles that have been built in the last few months were announced. Now, if your issue, which isn't your issue, Christian, you're just being provocative. You're just trying to be funny, and you're not. If your issue is that Trump has not built a wall from one end of the American border with Mexico to the other, from California through East Texas, and didn't force Mexico to pay for it, well, you don't have a legitimate argument. First off, it was candidate Donald Trump. Listen to the gobbledygook coming out of the mouth of sleepy Joe Biden right now, or Barack Obama and his lies and his fantasies when he ran for office. Every political candidate makes assertions about what they're going to do in office. But then they get there and someone hands them the keys to the palace and they get briefed and they find out that they're not all powerful and all seeing, and the things they claim they were going to do are simply not possible because they're not kings. They're not monarchs. They can't simply wave a wand, ooh, and make it happen. There's a legislature. There are the courts. And there are checks and balances, the things I was just talking about. So thank you so much for that, Christian, because you helped make a good transition to checks and balances. And as far as Mexico paying for the wall, did you honestly think Mexico was going to pay for the wall? What did you think was going to get? Budget allocation out of Mexico City's budget sent right to the U.S. Treasury to pay for the wall? Don't be silly. Donald Trump made a point that Mexico would pay for the wall. In fact, Mexico is paying for the wall. Why? Because they negotiated with us for the U.S.-Mexico-Canada trade agreement, which gave us advantageous trade terms, which we didn't have. And that was because Donald Trump scared them as a negotiator. So yeah, Mexico is paying for it in a fashion. Come on. You got to do better than that, Christian. That's not even close. Yeah. Trump tweeted Black Lives Matter leader of treason. Accused him of treason? Okay, that if he did, that's good. Carl grew up in Northwest in Klerksdorp, living in Muscle Bay, Western Cape, 2 different worlds. Yeah. Both heavily damaged by the ANC governance. Douglas Graham loves Trump. Leftists love democracy because it's vulnerable and they can take it over. Fonz. Okay, what else you got here? Malema is clever enough to go to the sun at night. Keith Aldrin says, how does tribalism in Libya compare with tribalism in South Africa? It's there. It's there, but for a long period of time, that sort of stuff was completely invisible to the outside world because of Muammar Gaddafi and the way he ran that country as a police state. So he's able to tamp down that for a long time. But yeah, it is there, but it's not nearly to the degree that you have in South Africa. South Africa, you have so many more different groups and such diverse groups. Even Bantu tribes are very diverse amongst them. There are similarities. For instance, if you speak Tswana, your not too distant cousins are the Basutu people. So when I went to Maseru, I could say, Dumelara, Dumelema, Otsihilichang, Kitsihili because they understood what I said, because Basutu and Tswana are not that far apart. They're close cousins. But you have a very vast difference between, say, the Venda and the Xhosa people or the Swazi people. Yeah, so Libya does have differences, but it's not nearly to the degree. Now, there are other kinds of tribes forming around leaders, not necessarily ethnic tribes, but political tribes are taking place in Libya today, and that caused a real problem. And Paulie, I agree, that was a good question by Keith Alderson. I hope you liked the answer. You found it useful. Carl's wearing my Obey mask from Roman now. Nobody can see it. Yeah, Roman is selling masks. That's awesome. Okay. China is paying for the trade war with America. No, they're not paying enough. Trump's negotiated some limited deals to open up access, but until China is obeying World Trade Organization rules and respects intellectual property, they're not paying even remotely enough. So no, they're not paying. No. Just having a little fun there. Okay, let me get back and read a little bit more from this. And remember, this does have a direct impact on events in South Africa. How warm is it in Durban today there, Christian? Is it too warm? Or is you still nice down there? All right. These observations lead to a startling conclusion. The American founders held that unrestricted majority rule is the principle of modern tyranny, just as unrestricted one-man rule is the principle of ancient tyranny. Now, in Africa, the big man complex reigns in many countries to this day. And so the tyranny of one is still in effect for many parts of Africa, despite the proliferation of democracies in sub-Saharan Africa. As historian Gordon Wood points out, they broke with their British predecessors in this respect. So convinced were the English in the decades following 1689 that tyranny would come only from a single ruler that they could hardly conceive of the people tyrannizing themselves. The American founders, by contrast, sought to avoid dual forms of tyranny: tyranny of the monarch and tyranny of the people as expressed through majority faction. Of course, the founders like Lincoln did submit to the principle of majority rule, but they did so in highly qualified terms. Majorities are not inherently wiser than minorities. And that is the facts, ladies and gentlemen. Majorities have no inherent special status or insight or knowledge over minorities. And in the South African context, you guys know exactly what I'm talking about here. Gareth says it's freezing. 18 freezing? Come on, man. 18 is heaven. In the UK, yeah, well, it was hot in the UK. I read that it was up there well over 35 degrees in parts of the UK and the Midlands yesterday there, Hendo. Whew. Yep. All right. Okay, so let me continue on here. So why should they rule over? Okay, I'm sorry. Majorities are not inherently wiser than minorities, so why should they rule over them? Lincoln spelled out the logic in his first inaugural address. Ideally, society would be ruled by unanimous consent. Since unanimous consent is practically impossible, there are two alternatives: majority rule or minority rule. Obviously, minority rule over the majority would be unjust, so majority rule is the only remaining alternative, and hence apartheid system, a minority of the country ruling over the majority, was considered unjust by many, and so the system eventually went away. But how to prevent majority rule from becoming unjust, which is the reverse, which is what we see in South Africa today. This was the fundamental problem that the founders, through the constitutional structure, sought to solve. The founders did so through several block and tackle measures designed to limit, frustrate, and in some cases thwart majority rule. Dinesh D'Souza counts at least 8 of these mechanisms. The first one, they adopted a written constitution. Again, a departure from Great Britain, which has a common law but no such constitution. That operates as a supreme charter overriding the will of the majority. The Constitution creates a framework for a limited government. Second was the Bill of Rights, later added to the Constitution, ironically at the assistance of the anti-federalist opponents, which is funny because they didn't want a constitution. This roster contains a series of limitations on government that typically begin, Congress shall make no law. In other words, these rights are guaranteed. They're natural rights. Admittedly, the Constitution can be amended, but the process is so onerous that it requires something approaching unanimity for this to occur. The Supreme Court has independent authority to enforce the Constitution and protect the rights of citizens against the will of the majority. Fourth, representative government, what this means is that the people do not rule directly. They rule by electing representatives who govern in their stead. Madison counted this practice a radical departure from the direct democracy of the ancient Athenians as a distinguishing mark between a democracy and a republic. And I would agree wholeheartedly with Madison. James Madison was correct. A large and extended society, in Madison's words, can function effectively only as a republic. Fifth, separation of powers. And this is the very important one for the United States. And in the context of the current insurrection and fomenting violence here in the United States, why Donald Trump doesn't simply just roll tanks into cities and take over, aside from the bad optics of that. This is the legal constraints. Separation of powers. Here the power is divided between an elected legislature charged with making laws and an elected executive charged with enforcing them, and an appointed judiciary empowered with arbitrating and resolving legal disputes. Sixth, the system of federalism, which divides power between the national government and the states, so that some powers are exercised at the national level, others at the state and local level. And seventh, checks and balances. It means in addition to dividing the power, there's mutual oversight. Congress has the power to make laws, but the president can veto them. The vetoes can be overridden only by congressional supermajorities. And finally, the Electoral College, that nice target of the left, the Electoral College, and the two branches of the legislature, the House and Senate. While the president, members of Congress, and senators are all elected by the people, the distribution of power is weighted to give representation to small and large states. The Electoral College ensures that a few large states cannot by themselves decide the presidency. What does this all mean? It means that America was designed to foster a spirit of freedom and enterprise among its people and to thwart majority rule from tyrannizing over that spirit. In sum, America is a free market society whose founding principles, as long as they remain intact, provide a powerful bulwark against socialism in every stripe, including democratic socialism. So take that, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and crack open a book and read the Constitution, which you are charged with supporting and defending as a member of the House of Representatives, which I doubt she's ever read the U.S. Constitution. Cool. I hope that wasn't too boring. You guys enjoyed that. Lost a few people there at the end. But let's see. Carl says, I love your knowledge of different cultures in South Africa. I speak a couple of these languages, and for American to have such knowledge is brilliant. I love this channel. Well, thank you so much for Carl. If anybody's here and you're not a subscriber to the channel, I ask that you take a moment and subscribe to the channel because you learn some neat stuff here. I learned some neat stuff. Great contributions from from folks who contribute to the conversations and jump in there. We are just 6 subscribers away from 4,000. Oh my goodness, 6,000, 6 subscribers. If there are 6 people here who are not subscribers, please, I ask that you go and become a subscriber. It costs absolutely nothing. And for those who want to support the channel, you're welcome to support the channel. We have memberships now on Chris White Africa. I set those up, and the levels are quite reasonable. It's not about making money. It's about being a part of something and contributing to something that you support. So memberships are team member and recruit. Then there's platoon leader and then master and commander. The lowest level is $1.99 US, but if you're in South Africa, you pay in rands, you pay 10 rand. That's 65 cents US for 1 month membership. Obviously, that is not going to feed much, but it's not about the feeding. It's about an opportunity for people to become a member of something. I have memberships because my subscribers repeatedly ask for it. Just like asking for Big Daddy Liberty, if I can make it happen on my channel and you've asked for it and it's reasonable, I'll make it happen. So I made memberships happen, and now I'm making Big Daddy Liberty happen as a guest on my channel. Yep, so let me get to a few things here. So we are at 3,994 subscribers, just 6 short. Not going to make it this stream, it looks like. It's just crazy because for a while there I was getting 500 subscribers every 2 days, and then it's kind of tailed off but a lot of people have not seen people on their channels this week. I think that a lot of people are away from YouTube this week. Monkey Pushing Wood says, hey, Chris, why would that Mexican that skipped in the U.S. want to learn about the Founding Fathers? Doesn't he already have his own history and culture? Well, okay, Monkey Pushing Wood, then he has no business being here unless he wants to be here as a guest worker, and then he can leave when he's finished. If you want to come to this country and you want to reside here with an objective of becoming an American citizen, then you need to learn these things. Absolutely. It's called assimilation. And it doesn't mean that you abandon your heritage. The Amish have been in this country for 350 years. Many of them still speak German as their first language. They live without modern conveniences like electricity and automobiles, and they're overwhelmingly engaged in woodworking and farming. They've retained their cultural distinctiveness. The old Spanish families of New Mexico, as opposed to Old Mexico, New Mexico, Arizona, and West Texas, still participate in the cultural traditions like cotillion that they've had for centuries. They've retained it. It was valuable to them, and they passed it on to their progeny. That's what people do with culture. You don't use states to protect culture and spend money on it. That's the responsibility of people. The reason Welsh has made a comeback in Wales isn't simply because it's available in schools. It's because people in Wales cared enough about it that they tried to save the language, which was rapidly disappearing, which is also happening to Irish, except in the Gaeltacht in Ireland. Other than that, very few people speak Irish of any sort in Ireland. They're all speaking English in Ireland. That's right. So there you go. Yeah, it's a good point, though, Monkey Pushing Wood. Why would someone that got in here illegally want to go back? Christian, did you leave? You never answered my question, or if you did, I missed it about how warm or cold it is in Durban. I'm curious. All right, so back to that. So close to getting there, just 6 away. Right, so once again, a reminder, let me just go through this, what's coming up on the channel. So tomorrow, on Friday, the 26th of June, my guest will be Scott Balson, known famously to many people as the person responsible for the Loving Life channel. And he will be on the channel tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here in the U.S. That will be at 8 p.m. in Botswana and in South Africa. Loving Life's Scott Balson. And then on Saturday, we're going to talk about the reopening of small businesses under lockdown, in particular in South Africa. And our guest will be my regular Saturday live stream, will be the co-owner of the Hair Tribe, Reese van der Walt, who will be joining us and talking about the challenges of COVID-19, and in particular in the service industry where she has a business that is deeply involved in close personal contact with its clients. And so what are the impacts of that? Should be a fascinating discussion. For those of you who've tuned in previously when Reese has been on the program with Yanni, very interesting to listen to them. And so check it out. That is tomorrow. And then I will also be on Jeremy Null's program, Germ Warfare, right after that. That broadcast will end, and then I go straight over to Germ Warfare where I'm a guest on his channel. And the reason I'm on early like that is because apparently he's got the Satanist back on tomorrow night. So, or not tomorrow, Saturday night. If you want to watch Satanist, you can go to Germ Warfare after we finish talking later in the evening on Germ Warfare. And then on Sunday, the one that people have been asking for a long time, Big Daddy Liberty will be my guest here on Chris White Africa. So tune in for that, Big Daddy Liberty, Sunday, and that one will be at 11 Eastern, 5 p.m. You can check these out by checking out the streams online on the channel. And those are the upcoming streams over the weekend. And so I hope you enjoy those. Should be interesting. Oh, something just happened. What happened? Oh, Paulie just donated Super Chat. Well, thank you so much for that, Paulie. Keep trying, Christian. Well, Paulie, I don't think you'll start a Super Chat war because it seems like Christian is a leftist, and leftists would never give any money. There's a challenge. Christian, here's your chance to Super Chat. show your leftist medal right there. Go ahead and do it. Ruibot. What? Redbeard. Oh, okay. I don't know what you're going there, Douglas. Anyway, yeah, so thank you so much for the Super Chat there. You should take a dig at Christian. I think that's a perfectly good use of Super Chats. If you want to do a Super Sticker, Super Chat, feel free to do that, ladies and gentlemen. That's a good one. All right, and speaking of Super Chats and memberships, let me just go really quickly and do a little housekeeping on that and talk about most recent members, members and also the Super Chats that have come in. So we are currently sitting at 45 members of Chris White Africa, and the last member was Linda Griesen. She joined along with Corlia van der Merwe. And then before that was Bosch Zebra. That's all in the past few days. Thank you guys for becoming members. Super Chats today in this session. Thank you so much for that. Paulie, Handy Dutchman, and Pete Buttons. Thank you so much for that. I think the Dodgy Idealist as well, right? Was that tonight? Yeah, I think that was tonight. So thank you so much for those Super Chats, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, so is anybody else here on Parler? I'm just curious if it's just me. It's a U.S. platform, so it's not particularly well known. It's been around for about 2 years. And a lot of people are moving to it. Katie Hopkins, who was unfairly banned from Twitter permanently, has gone to Parler. Dinesh D'Souza has moved over to Parler, but he's retaining his presence on Twitter for now. So we'll see what happens there. Am I available for... Why? Because of the Santa Claus beard? This probably won't be here at Christmas time. So if that's what you're counting on, you're banking on the beard being there for Christmas. I wouldn't bank on it. This was an experiment. I haven't minded it, but we'll see what happens. 30 degrees plus. Okay. Oh, okay. Cool beans. 10 degrees in Pretoria. Going to build a sauna tomorrow. Oof. Okay. Let's see. Carl... Okay. Sean says it might be a good idea to move the statues of F.W. Tutu and Mandela, aka the Three Stooges, into the water. Okay. You like Desmond Tutu? Wow, that's rough. Okay. He's almost universally liked outside South Africa. So I don't know about inside South Africa. Keep the beard, shave the top. I'm not shaving the top. I've been bald, folks. Terrence is taking off here. I think a lot of folks are going to take off here shortly. It's getting a bit late. Carl says, come visit Mossel Bay. I'll give you a combination. Whoa. Okay, I'm going to make a note of that. Carl said Mossel Bay, a week of accommodation. Look at that. That's awesome. He didn't mention it. Oh, he said free. He did say free. I was going to say he didn't mention the price, but he said free. All right. That's very kind of you, Carl. Cool. Douglas says, love your book. You're the best. Well, thank you so much, man. And Lone Wolf likes Tutu. Yeah, outside of South Africa, he's almost universally loved. I know he's popular with a lot of people in South Africa, but I know some people take issue with Desmond Tutu. He's done a few things over the years that kind of shake your head at times, but by and large, I think he's a really good chap. He's a good chap, and he's done well for folks. Bosch says, did you know that U.S. National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien is apparently a fluent Afrikaans speaker? I did not know that at all, and I didn't even realize that O'Brien was the National Security Advisor for a while there when he first got appointed. It kind of escaped me. Anita Zandberg just subscribed. Well, Anita, thank you so much for subscribing. That's very kind of you. I love to see the zombie climbing the Mahalisberg. By the way, folks, just so that's clear for folks, let me just point that out. For those who don't know, that oftentimes I'm asked, what is that background? What's that photograph? That's a photograph I took 2 years ago coming from Gaborone back through Zeerust and Swartrugens, headed towards Rustenburg and onwards to Pretoria. That is what's known as Olifantsnek around there. And that's on the motorway. That's the south side, and that's the northern edge of the Mahalisberg Mountains, the northwestern edge of the Mahalisberg Mountains. If you were driving on that road, that would be out the right side of the window, which would be the driver's side in South Africa, because you guys are confused and your steering wheel's on the wrong side of the car. So that would be that side of the car. On the left-hand side, the passenger side, you would look out and you see the exit for the Royal Bafokeng Stadium. So you go up the hill, and then you descend down towards the exit for Rustenburg. You take the left on the off-ramp, and you go into Rustenburg, you take the right, go over the overpass, and just to the right-hand side, you see the Waterfalls Mall. If you were to go straight, you'll drive straight into the Mahalisberg. That's what that is. A lot of people ask me about that. That's my photograph, and it's just kind of become, I don't know, a trademark of the channel. People like it, so I leave it up there. So I hope you guys enjoy that. Just a little background, explain what that is. Thanks for that information, Bosch Zebra, about Robert O'Brien. I'll have to check into him. The Soviets in Hungary had their statues moved to an out-of-the-way park, yeah. You know, the Red Army statue is still in Berlin. They destroyed Berlin, yet there's a Red Army statue there. Yeah, that hasn't been destroyed. The price would be a good conversation. Yeah, of course, Carl. Yeah, and we'd have to have a braai or two or three. Okay, Douglas, what are you laughing about? My Afrikaans? It's not the Magaliesberg Mountains. That's not the correct pronunciation. Why didn't you drive the Koster Derby Road rather than Rustenburg? Too far. Because I was coming from Gaborone, and it was the best road. It was the fastest. The only problem is you had to pay the Bakwena toll, which has gotten pricey over the years. Outrageous what they charge for that toll road. But yeah, so you come down from the Tolkwang border crossing, or Kopfontein, I think it is, in South Africa. Tolkwang, you drive down. Beautiful drive as you reach the mountains just before Zeerust, the mountains on the south or the north side of Zeerust. You descend down to Zeerust, you pass the army barracks there, drive into Zeerust, hook a left, and drive to Swartrugens and then on to Rustenburg. And that takes you over eventually to Pretoria. Lots of Coke and beer. Body saying sleep. Yeah, I think it's probably for a lot of folks. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all so much for tuning in tonight. Let me do a quick check and see where we're at on those who subscribe to the channel and see how close we are. We are 3,900 and 95 subscribers. So close. Well, thank you for the 5 or 6 folks who did subscribe to the channel while we were on the stream. Really appreciate that. It's great. When I get to 4,000, like I always do, I'll make a little video and thank folks for becoming subscribers. And in case you're wondering, no, I'm not obsessed about subscribers. I just know that, milestones are important to everybody. It's kind of cool. So if you watch a channel that had 10 subscribers last week and next week it has 1,000, that's kind of cool. Look, I'm on this channel. Lots of people are joining. It's interesting. So that's kind of why I'm hoping to get 4,000 here. Don't get paid for it, so it has nothing to do with that. It's simply just trying to grow the community. So thank you so much for that. Let's see what else. Christian's still here? We should do a Skype interview. Well, Christian, you've not given an indication it would be well behaved. If you want to ask questions instead of calling names, could consider it. Maybe we could talk ahead of time sometime, and we'll think about it. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Easy defender. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to close it here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, tomorrow is Friday. I will have Scott on for my live stream, and that'll be in the afternoon, and I'll probably do a follow-up session later in the evening afterwards. Of course, I'll do that, and that'll be at the same time Ronaldo's on. Or no, Ronaldo's actually on earlier because I think he changed his date. He was on the radio, so whatever the case is, I'll do a stream probably later just to do a wrap-up and get feedback about Scott's appearance, Loving Life, on the channel. So there you go. Anyway, so ladies and gentlemen, be safe. Have a pleasant evening. I don't mean to drop off for the 50 viewers who are still on the channel. Just it's time to end for tonight. And thank you so much for your patronage, for your interest, for your patience, for sticking with us. And hang in there. We'll get a final confirmation on the Malawi elections. I know that I and nobody else is worried about it. But we'll get confirmation hopefully next day or two about the opposition winning in Malawi. And we'll see that democracy continues in Malawi. But beyond that, you all have a pleasant evening. We'll wrap up, as usual, with a song from Giselle. And we will have her back on the channel sometime in the next week or two, in which we'll hopefully have the videos. That's the only reason I haven't had her yet, is because I need the videos so we can play the videos and then talk about the music. I don't have all of her videos. So we're working on that. And Giselle will come back and we'll celebrate the release of all of the songs from Für uns Mensa on digital platforms. Okay, so there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Christian says he'll be good, I promise. Christian, go to the About tab and send me an email. If you haven't done that, I don't think you have. If you have, you can release my email there. Send me an email, and I'll chat with you. We'll see what comes of that, okay? All right, ladies and gentlemen, this will be Giselle on the way out the door. God bless. Have a safe night if you're in South Africa, Botswana, Namibia, Singapore, Hong Kong, wherever you find yourselves, ladies and gentlemen. Be safe. Take care of yourselves. It's already tomorrow in Japan and Australia and New Zealand. But for those of us back on this side of the world, the sun will be with us for several more hours as we're here in summertime. Have a pleasant evening, ladies and gentlemen. God bless and be safe.
Voel jy of jy maar net bestaan? Voel jy asof die lewe sonder jou aangaan einde? Wat ek sonder twyfel weet, jy is nie net 'n nommer nie, en jy is deel van die groter prentjie. Daar's 'n rede dat jy lewe, 'n doel vir jou bestaan.